campus of Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, a historic and cultural center across the Southern Illinois region. Founded in 1869, the university has brought in students from all across the country to turn the otherwise uneventful town of Carbondale into a melting pot of culture. What you see on the surface of this wintry late semester day is a flurry of students preoccupied with studies as finals quickly approach. This is just a snapshot, however, of the rich history, perhaps hidden in the buildings themselves, some of which have watched nearly 150 years worth of young men and women not just study, but experience life, find themselves in a variety of fashions, and force their voices to be heard. One thing tens of thousands of these students have had in common for more than 50 years is where they all run back to and call home. The Brush Towers, erected in the 1960s, SIU's primary dormitory buildings, tower 17 stories above the city of Carbondale and have become a key feature in the skyline of Southern Illinois. The closest building in the state to rival their height is in the state's capital of Springfield, more than 150 miles away.
I know that there's got to be some night, some students at the top floors of the towers looking out over this city and feeling good about what they see. As a distinctive landmark, Pulliam Hall's bell tower is one that we know, but I think the towers is also.
This is where people experiment and try and learn more and figure out who they are, and it's really interesting to watch people do that together. Like my parents came down here for Halloween a couple years back, and my dad said, he's like, oh, I stayed in that May Smith tower. I slept on my friend's floor and it was really uncomfortable, but I know what those towers look like. They recognize the towers and they know that that's Carbondale, that these three massive concrete monoliths are part of SIU. It's like this unchanging, almost friend that you have. Like it's familiar, it's recognizable that these are the towers and this is SIU.
Those buildings are landmarks. They really do help to define this campus. And there will be some regret and some nostalgia when they are demolished.
The first tower is scheduled to come down in 2017, and its two counterparts will follow shortly after.
It's too expensive to maintain them. I don't think people are going to talk about aesthetic issues, sociological issues, political issues, or moral issues, though I think all of those adhere to any decision that's going to be made. I really do believe that the changing demographics of the Carbondale SIU campus have got something to do with the kinds of spaces they want. They don't want concentrated populations like they've had in the past.
Never had nobody listen, always thought they'd listen, but they never did, never cared. Any chance to it, never cared, never win. You gotta stay close to win. I stay close to can, cause that water is thin. Takes two hands to swim. The blues never end, so I wish the rain days.
In the 1960s, the U.S. was particularly involved in the Vietnam War. The year that the U.S. had the most troops overseas just so happened to be 1968, the very same year the May Smith and Schneider halls were completed and opened to students. SIU's apparently humble campus turned out to be a very dramatic stage for anti-war protesters. Many of these protests ended with a great deal of bloodshed. H.B. Koplowitz gave his account of the martial law that was declared in the book Carbondale After Dark. He quoted newspaper articles of the day saying that in a few short minutes, 78 businesses were trashed and more than $100,000 in property damage had been dealt. The next day, martial law was declared. Sales of alcohol and gasoline were prohibited, and sundown through sunup curfews were declared. The hundreds of soldiers sent to restore order subjected innocent students and townspeople to tear gas and violence, keeping the tensions high. It continued for several days, resulting in the closing of SIU before the end of the semester.
These buildings were built back in the 60s. So they were built during this really tumultuous time, and I mean, campus got shut down for a while, there were riots, we burnt down Old Main.
It would be an interesting conversation to have about the number of students who come from very, very small towns where you might not have as many people in their hometown as you have in the Brush Towers alone. And to be put into that kind of a radically different living space is bound to have some social implications also.
There's a lot of tension when you cram this many people into a building, when you cram this many people into a space.
I feel like when you have a large group of young adults who necessarily don't have any boundaries, yeah, they're gonna wow out. So many people are congealed in one small area, and you know, I guess they're just bouncing the ignorance off of each other.
I think that the Residence Hall staff have, in the 16 years I've been here, done some really positive work on getting those young people to interact and learn how to live in a public space.
I didn't want to walk around your camera. No, that's cool.
I'm sad to see them go. They've been around for so long, and I mean, it is fun to sit there and talk with my parents and my parents' friends when they were back in college in the 70s and the 80s.
You know, if you were someone who is trying to map out, okay, tell me things that are specific to Southern Illinois, Carbondale, the towers will be one of those things that you list.
As a history major, I think it's just fascinating the amount of people and the amount of different experiences that have happened in this building.
We love the third floor. It's my home.
What's up? Woo! Party in the elevator. How you doing?
Fine.
I actually do like the vibe and the sense of community that's here, where everybody kind of meets together and, you know, there's fun and there's community here.
I like the towers. I don't miss the towers.
Which is why I do still live here.
Here you have an identity of a building.
Here, I live in Neely Tower. The best tower in the world. Yes, it is.
Like you can tell somebody, oh, I live in Neely, I live in Bay Smith, I live in Schneider.
Oh no, we always are just always all over the place in Neely. Neely is the best place to stay.
So much ingrained in what we are. It's you know, the kids at the Bay Smith is the freshman tower. Schneider has the stoop.
You guys are boring. We're the best tower. It's okay. You can hate later. We're always getting into little petty arguments about who's the best tower, and I'm really kind of stationed here. I like it here. I don't want this tower to go. I might cry. Oh man. I'm serious. I might cry.